Hi,
Hi.
welcome back. In yesterday's video, I was talking about the 3.0 MOC, and honestly a lot of Star Rail's endgame content in general, focusing way too much on being a marketing tactic, rather than bringing actual challenging content. The main idea I was discussing was challenging variety versus boring marketing, and I think there's a little more to talk about when it comes to Hoyoverse and their marketing practices, and how sustainable they are. My friend X made a really wonderful video which got an insane yet deserved amount of views about Hoyo versus Greed, and this is kind of an extension to that as well, or more of an explanation of what they're doing versus what they need to do. However, I won't really be discussing Genshin since I haven't played it in 2 years, I'll only be discussing Star Rail. The idea of sustainable marketing isn't really discussed in this space at all from what I've seen, so I think I'll take the initiative. In this video we're going to be talking about Hoyo versus marketing techniques, how they're not sustainable, and what they should be doing instead. Now listen here, Dawei. If you follow what I tell you to do in this video, you won't only be able to get a 6th yacht, but you'll also be able to feed your mansion addiction. So, wipe those tears, big boy, and get to listening. Before we start though, you should get down there and hit those like and subscribe buttons because not many of you are actually subscribed and it would help out a ton. You should also join the Express Red Discord server for a fun and lovely community to hang out with. I wouldn't take too much out of your time though, so let's get onto it already. So, in my previous video, I was talking about how we as players need challenging variety or challenging content over boring marketing when it comes to endgame content. You should definitely go watch that video, but I'll summarize it here. The amount of characters that can take decent advantage of the 3.0 MOC cycle buff is tiny compared to the amount of characters that could take advantage of the 2.7 MOC cycle buff. The latter was made to specifically shield Herda and Aglaia, and while it does give the other characters benefits, it does not make them as viable as they ever were, and especially when facing the current combo of enemies of the Bug and Nicodor boss, which share 2 out of 3 weaknesses. The whole of MOC 12 only has 4 different recommended elements anyway, which is pretty pathetic. A boss like Kafka or Dormancy instead of the Bug would have been much better and would have genuinely made this MOC one of the best, because it is way too AoE focused, leaving most players who are playing with Boot Hill and Fei Xiao in the dust, and those two were supposed to be some of the strongest units in the game. I'm not going to say much else. If you have any gripes about whatever I just said, just go watch the previous video where I explain everything way more in depth. Then after all of that, then you have the right to leave a hate comment, and bonus points if you tell me to commit the Sayori challenge. Anyway, the connection this has with today's topic is obviously the 3.0 MOC being a case of very boring and unsustainable marketing. What I mean by unsustainable marketing is that which aims to attract or take advantage of new players without worrying about the feelings or opinions of older players. Just like I was saying yesterday, players who pulled Fei Xiao only to figure out that she's completely ass unless you're running E1 Robin in this cycle will feel very cheated. What they're attempting to do is get you to pull the new unit, and in this MOC specifically, they're doing it in such a way that insinuates they're trying to get you to pull both the new units, Aglaia and Herda, because the first half caters to Herda very heavily with its enemies, but the second half also caters to Herda and Aglaia at the same time. It would have been more than enough if they only used the second half to cater to both units, because they're both DPS units they really want you to pull. It would have left, as I mentioned before, the first half for a boss that brings more variety to the cycle rather than a boss that shares half its best matchup teams with the second half boss anyway. Not to mention, the cycle buff basically fixes 99% of Aglaia's energy problems, making her seem like a flawless character when you try her out in this MOC, which is very false, and also gives Herda way more inspiration stacks. There are other characters that can take huge advantage of this buff, but they're either pretty niche like Yunli and Argenti, which also wouldn't really do much damage in either half because the weaknesses don't match, or they don't really help out older units that much, which still leaves characters like Jingliu, Danhagael, and Zila in the dust. Now we do know they're going to buff up older characters, but this is something I want to discuss further both in this video and in an upcoming video once I have more information about Castoris and Annex's kits, so look forward to the beta. Now, while old unit buffs are something we've been asking for ever since we realized Jingliu kinda sucks now, and while it seems like an insane step forward when you first think about it, they really need to implement some drastic changes into the way they make new character kits for old character kits to matter. The problem started with Acheron ignoring resistances and weaknesses and breaking basically all of Star Rail's combat rules when it comes to elemental types and paths, and it's been happening ever since with almost every single new unit. From what we know right now, Castoris and Annexa are going to be insanely broken for multiple different reasons, but as I said, I'm not going to discuss them in depth until we get more info about them. If they truly are broken, then old character buffs don't really matter much, and it's just another case of unsustainable and boring marketing that is only there to attract new players to take advantage of them while leaving old players in the dust. Let's say we do get a Zila buff that makes her a T0.5 unit in 3.2, however, oopsies, Castoise still triples her damage because she's f***ing broken. Now Acheron is a lot weaker because Zila is in the same tier as her, and Castoise triples her damage too, which means Acheron players will ask for buffs. But then when Acheron is buffed maybe a couple updates later, well oopsies, HP is now inflated again, leaving Zila mains asking for buffs and so on and so forth. I think you get it, I don't need to give you any more examples. The problem is it's just an endless cycle of asking for buffs because the new unit is always broken. So in the future I hope they do avoid this type of marketing, and instead of continuing to make the new best DPS units almost every single update, they should instead focus on side grades and building up multiple metas that either don't exist yet or haven't been expanded upon enough. If they do that for a while, they can genuinely keep going until 5.x without having to power creep any DPS unit. That would be sustainable marketing. It does attract new players using shiny new characters and toys, but also keeps old players having fun because their favorite units aren't really useless like they feel right now. If Acheron was truly the best DPS unit right now like she is supposed to be, things would be completely fine because players who pull Jingliu would probably not have to get Herda as well because Herda more than quadruples Jingliu's damage. Herda wouldn't have gotten any less sales either. Sensor Tower said Starwell had 50 million in profit in January, if I remember correctly. And yes, I know Sensor Tower isn't really accurate, but it does give us a general ballpark and a semi-reliable ranking when comparing games to each other, bonus gacha PvP, and when comparing games to themselves. And I genuinely believe if they were marketing their game sustainably, they would have had a lot more profit than they did in January for multiple reasons. One is that Amphorius marketing completely sucks when compared to Penacony marketing. Now, I've made this joke before, but people like to call Kuro Games' marketing team trash. Meanwhile, whatever marketing team was in charge of Amphorius should genuinely be fired and never given a job ever again. They suck. I mean, Penacony's 2.0 livestream has nearly 2 million views, while Amphorius' 3.0 livestream has 900,000. So they really aren't reeling in any new players, and we know that old players are generally dissatisfied with the state of the game, which led to them to spend a lot less money. Now, $50 million, if that is how much they made, is not a small number whatsoever. I'm not saying that Starwell is dying, but it is a small number for a mainstream Hoyoverse game, especially when comparing it to its prime, which was during Penacony of course. The 2.0 patch for Starwell in February of 2024 amassed $85.8 million, with $145 million in March, with the Acheron patch and $99 million in April. Right now, 3.0 accrued a measly $50 million, which is $35.8 million less than the 2.0 patch, even though it has released one of the most supposedly hyped up, or at the very least looked forward to characters in the game, which is Big Herda. People are disappointed and have been disappointed for a very long time, and at this point even the Chinese community are actively hating on Starwell for what they've been doing with their endgame content, and how they're almost forcing you to pull new characters to have a chance at winning. That's right, it's so fucking ridiculous and unbelievable now that even the CN community is complaining. That's almost unheard of. Only happening in the cases of Zhongli and Yuvalet with Genshin. It's also really great because if even the CN community is complaining, that means they absolutely know that they f***ed up. So let's hope that at the very least bears some fruit. Now, I've talked quite a lot about how I'm going to quit the game if 3.2 is a bad update, and that has never been truer. 3.2 has to do a few things to be a good update and to keep thousands of players, including me and many of my friends, from quitting. Number 1 is that it has to be a good anniversary patch with a lot of rewards, including a free 5-star character, because what we've been through in the past couple of months is more than deserving of that. Number 2 is that it has to fix numerous old characters by giving them good buffs. Zila, Silverwolf, Yanqing, Bailu, and honestly even Jingyu Wan deserve to get kit reworks that make them better. 3.3 also has to follow up with more characters like Jingliu, Danheng IL, Blade, and Kafka. The third thing 3.2 has to do is not have any insanely overpowered units. If it does have insanely overpowered units, then we're right back where we started, and we made zero progress from all the complaining that we did. The fourth thing 3.2 has to do is have a legitimately good story, and not a 6-hour yap session. The 3.1 story is set to be around 6 hours long, and if it actually is, I'm genuinely going to crash the fuck out. If 3.2 does not deliver, I'm quitting the game. So many of my content creator friends are quitting the game, and you should also probably quit this game. So, thank you so much for making it this far. Make sure to let me know your thoughts about what's been happening in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this in the future. Other than that, join the Expression and Discord server for a fun and lovely community to hang out with, which is not based on Star Rail actually. We're all about all video games and anime, so you should join. Now thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time.